When my daughter-in-law told me I was no longer welcome in the home I helped build, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there in the kitchen, holding a dish towel, and smiled. Maybe I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. Maybe I smiled because I couldn't believe it was real. Or maybe, deep down, I smiled because I had seen it coming for a long time and just didn't want to admit it. Her words weren't loud. They weren't cruel in the way you'd expect. She said them softly, almost kindly, like she was doing me a favor. "Mom," she said, "I think it's time you found your own place. This house, it's just not working anymore." I remember the way the sunlight came through the window behind her. It made her look almost angelic. But her words felt like winter. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to remind her of all the mornings I woke up early to make breakfast for her and my son. I wanted to tell her about the nights I stayed up when their baby was sick, rocking him to sleep so they could rest. I wanted to say, this is my home too. But I didn't. I just nodded. I folded the dish towel. I placed it on the counter. And I walked to my room. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around. This room had been mine for 3 years. 3 years since I moved in to help them. 3 years since my son asked me to come live with them because they needed me. And now I wasn't needed anymore. I'm not telling you this story because I want you to feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. Sometimes, the people you love the most can make you feel the smallest. And sometimes, the home you helped build is the first one to push you out. This is my story. My name is Ruth. I'm 62 years old. I've been a mother for 37 years, a widow for 5, and for the last 3 years, I've been what some people call a live-in grandmother. I never imagined my life would look like this. When my husband, Daniel, passed away, I thought my world had ended. We had spent 40 years together. 40 years of waking up next to the same person, sharing the same coffee pot, arguing about the thermostat, and holding hands during every storm. When he died, the house we shared became too big, too quiet, too full of memories I couldn't touch anymore. My son, Jason, noticed. He's a good boy. Well, he's not a boy anymore. He's 35 now, married, with a son of his own. But to me, he'll always be my little boy. The one who used to climb into my lap when he had nightmares. The one who held my hand at his father's funeral and told me, "Mom, you're not alone. You'll never be alone." 6 months after Daniel died, Jason called me. His voice sounded tired. He said, "Mom, Rebecca and I have been talking. We want you to move in with us." Rebecca is his wife. They'd been married for 5 years at that point. I didn't know her very well, honestly. She was always polite, always smiled at family gatherings, but we never had those long, deep conversations. I always thought that would come with time. "We need help with the baby," Jason continued. "And you need family around you." "It makes sense, Mom. Please, come live with us." I didn't think twice. I said yes. I sold my house. I packed up 40 years of memories into boxes and suitcases. I left the neighborhood where I'd raised my son, where I'd planted flowers every spring, where I'd kissed my husband goodnight for the last time. And I moved into Jason and Rebecca's home. At first, it felt like a blessing. It was warm and full of life. My grandson, Tommy, was only 6 months old. He had the brightest eyes and the sweetest giggle. I spent my days holding him, feeding him, singing to him. I cooked meals. I cleaned. I did laundry. I helped Rebecca when she was tired. I gave Jason advice when he felt overwhelmed. I felt useful. I felt needed. I felt like I had a purpose again. Rebecca seemed grateful. She'd smile and say, "Thank you, Mom. I don't know what we'd do without you." And Jason would hug me and say, "You're a lifesaver." I believed them. For the first year, everything was good. We were a family. We had dinners together. We celebrated birthdays. We took Tommy to the park on weekends. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But slowly, things started to change. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't dramatic. It was small things. Little things. Things I almost didn't notice at first. Rebecca stopped asking for my help. She used to come to me and say, "Mom, can you watch Tommy while I run to the store?" Or, "Mom, can you help me fold these clothes?" But after a while, she just stopped. She'd do everything herself. Even when I offered, she'd say, "No, it's okay. I've got it." I thought maybe she was just trying to be independent. I didn't want to overstep. Then I started noticing the way she looked at me. It was hard to describe. It wasn't angry. It wasn't mean. It was just distant. Like I was a guest who had stayed too long. Jason didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't want to say anything. He was busy with work, busy with life. When he came home, he'd play with Tommy, eat dinner, and fall asleep on the couch. He wasn't ignoring me. He just wasn't really seeing me either. I started spending more time in my room. I'd sit by the window and read. I'd call my old friends from my old neighborhood. I'd watch the birds outside and wonder if I'd made a mistake. I was in the kitchen making soup. It was a recipe Daniel used to love. I thought maybe it would bring some warmth back into the house. Rebecca came in. She stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching me. "Mom," she said, "you don't have to cook every night." "I don't mind," I said. "I like cooking." "I know," she said. "But I'd like to cook sometimes too. For my family." Her family. Not our family. Her family. I tried to smile. I said, "Of course, sweetheart. I'll step back." She nodded and left the kitchen. I stood there, stirring the soup, and felt something crack inside me. It was small. Quiet. But it was there. Weeks went by. I tried to give her space. I tried not to interfere. I tried to be helpful without being in the way. But nothing I did seemed right. If I cleaned the living room, she'd re-clean it her way. If I folded laundry, she'd refold it. If I suggested something for Tommy, she'd smile and say, "Thanks, but I think we'll try it this way." I started to feel invisible. Jason still hugged me. He still called me Mom. But he was on Rebecca's side. Always. Even when he didn't realize it. If I mentioned feeling a little left out, he'd say, "Mom, you're being too sensitive. Rebecca's just adjusting." Adjusting to what? I wanted to ask. I've been here for 2 years. But I didn't say anything. I just smiled. I just nodded. I just went back to my room. And that's when I started to understand something painful. I had given up my life to help them build theirs. But in their story, I was becoming a side character. A background detail. A woman who used to matter. I wasn't Ruth anymore. I wasn't Daniel's wife. I wasn't Jason's mother. I was just the old woman in the guest room. And nobody knew what to do with me. Point started with a drawer. I know that sounds strange. How can a drawer change everything? But sometimes, it's the smallest things that show you the truth you've been avoiding. It was a Tuesday morning. I woke up early, like I always do. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and watched the sun come up. The house was quiet. Jason had already left for work. Rebecca was still asleep. Tommy was in his crib, not yet awake. I decided to organize the kitchen drawer. You know the one. Every house has it. The junk drawer. Full of batteries, rubber bands, old receipts, pens that don't work anymore. I thought I'd do something useful. Something helpful. I pulled everything out. I wiped down the inside. I sorted through the mess. I threw away the trash. I organized what was left. It took me almost an hour. When I was done, I felt proud. It was a small thing, but it was something. When Rebecca came into the kitchen later that morning, she opened the drawer to grab a pen. She stopped. She stared at it. Then she closed it. She turned to me. "Did you go through this drawer?" she asked. Her voice wasn't angry. But it wasn't warm either. "Yes," I said. I thought I'd clean it up a bit. It was getting messy. She didn't say anything for a moment. She just looked at me. Then she said, "Mom, I appreciate it. But I had things organized the way I liked them. I knew where everything was." "Oh," I said. "I'm sorry. I was just trying to help." "I know," she said. "But this is my house. I need things to stay the way I set them up." "My house. Not our house. My house." I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just said, "I understand." But I didn't understand. Not really. After that, I became afraid to touch anything. I stopped organizing. I stopped cleaning the common areas. I stayed in my room more. I only came out for meals. And even then, I felt like I was intruding. Jason, Rebecca, and I were having dinner. Tommy was in his high chair, playing with his food. I had made meatloaf. It was one of Jason's favorites growing up. He took a bite and smiled. "This is great, Mom," he said. "Just like when I was a kid." Rebecca looked down at her plate. She didn't say anything. I tried to make conversation. I asked about their day. I asked about Tommy's doctor appointment. I asked if they needed anything from the store. Rebecca answered in short sentences. Jason seemed distracted. Then Rebecca said something that made my heart sink. "Jason and I have been talking," she said. "We're thinking about enrolling Tommy in daycare." I looked at her. "Daycare? But I'm here. I can watch him." "I know," she said. "But we think it would be good for him. To socialize with other kids. To have a routine." "I can give him a routine," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. Jason reached over and touched my hand. "Mom, it's not about you. We just think it's the right choice for Tommy." But it felt like it was about me. It felt like they were saying I wasn't enough. That I wasn't doing a good enough job. That they didn't need me anymore. I nodded. I finished my dinner in silence. I helped clean up. Then I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I felt so small. So unwanted. So useless. The next few weeks were harder. Tommy started daycare. I had even less to do. I'd wake up in the morning, and the house would be empty. Jason at work. Rebecca running errands or meeting friends. Tommy at daycare. I was alone. In a house full of people, I was completely alone. I started going for walks. Long walks. I'd leave in the morning and come back in the afternoon. I'd walk through the neighborhood, past houses full of families I didn't know. I'd sit on benches in the park and watch other grandmothers playing with their grandchildren. I'd wonder what I did wrong. Evening, I came back from a walk and heard voices in the kitchen. It was Jason and Rebecca. They didn't know I was home. I stood in the hallway and I heard my name. "I just don't know what to do anymore," Rebecca said. "She's always here. Always. I feel like I can't breathe in my own home." "She's my mom," Jason said. "Where else is she supposed to go?" "I don't know," Rebecca said. "But this isn't working." She hovers. She reorganizes things. She tries to help, but it just makes everything harder. I feel like I'm living with a stranger. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to pretend I didn't hear. But I couldn't move. "She's lonely," Jason said. "Dad died. She doesn't have anyone else." "I know," Rebecca said. Her voice softened. "And I feel terrible. I really do. But Jason, we can't keep living like this. I need my space. I need to feel like this is my home. Our home. Not hers." There was a long silence. Then Jason said, "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's time we talked to her. Maybe it's time she thought about finding her own place." I didn't wait to hear more. I turned and went to my room. I closed the door as quietly as I could. I sat on the bed and pressed my hands to my chest. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They wanted me to leave. My son. The boy I raised. The boy I sacrificed everything for. He was going to ask me to leave. I didn't cry. I don't know why. Maybe I was too shocked. Maybe I'd known it was coming and didn't want to admit it. Maybe I was just too tired. I stayed in my room for the rest of the night. I didn't go out for dinner. I heard a soft knock on my door. Jason's voice. "Mom? You okay? Do you want something to eat?" I said, "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired." He paused. Then he said, "Okay. Good night, Mom." "Good night," I whispered. I lay in bed that night and stared at the ceiling. I thought about my life. I thought about Daniel. I thought about the house I sold. I thought about the friends I left behind. I thought about all the choices I made because I wanted to be close to my family. And now, my family didn't want me close anymore. I didn't sleep much that night. And when I did, I dreamed of my old house. The one with the flowers in the front yard. The one where I'd kissed my husband goodnight for the last time. The one I should have never left. The conversation happened on a Saturday morning. I woke up to the smell of coffee. I thought maybe things would be normal. Maybe I had imagined the tension. Maybe everything I'd heard was just my mind playing tricks on me. But when I walked into the kitchen, I knew. I could feel it in the air. The heaviness. The silence that wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that comes before something breaks. Jason was sitting at the table. Rebecca was standing by the counter, her arms crossed. They both looked at me when I walked in. "Good morning," I said softly. "Morning, Mom," Jason said. "Can you sit down? We need to talk." My heart started beating faster. I knew what was coming, but I sat down anyway. I folded my hands in my lap. I waited. Jason looked at Rebecca. She nodded, but she didn't look at me. He cleared his throat. "Mom," he started. "We love you. You know that, right?" I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. "And we're so grateful for everything you've done for us," he continued. "You've helped us so much with Tommy. You've been amazing." But there it was. The word I'd been dreading. But Rebecca and I have been talking," he said. "And we think maybe it's time for you to start thinking about getting your own place." Words hung in the air. I stared at him. My son. My only child. The boy I held when he was born. The boy I rocked to sleep. The boy I raised alone after his father died. "My own place," I repeated quietly. "Yes," Rebecca said. Her voice was gentle, but firm. "We think it would be good for everyone. For you, too, Mom. You'd have your independence. Your own space. You could do whatever you want without feeling like you have to help us all the time." I looked at her. "I don't feel like I have to help. I want to help." "I know," she said. "But it's not healthy. For any of us. We need to be our own family. And you need to have your own life." "My own life." "What life?" I wanted to ask. "The life I had is gone. My husband is gone. My house is gone. My friends moved on. This was my life. You were my life." But I didn't say any of that. Jason reached across the table and took my hand. "Mom, this doesn't mean we don't love you. This doesn't mean you're not part of our family. You'll always be part of our family. But we think this is what's best." "Best for who?" I thought. "Best for you. Best for Rebecca. But what about me?" I pulled my hand away gently. I stood up. I felt dizzy. I felt like the floor was tilting under me. "Okay," I said. Jason looked surprised. "Okay." "Yes," I said. "Okay. If that's what you want, then okay." "Mom, we're not trying to hurt you," he said. "I know," I said. And I did know. They weren't cruel people. They weren't trying to be mean. But that didn't make it hurt any less. I walked back to my room. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around. At the small dresser. At the few pictures I'd hung on the wall. At the suitcase still tucked in the corner from when I first moved in. I had given up everything to be here. And now I was being asked to leave. I didn't cry. Not yet. I think I was too numb. Spent the rest of that day in my room. I heard Tommy laughing in the living room. I heard the TV playing. I heard Jason and Rebecca talking in low voices. But I didn't go out. I couldn't. That night, there was a soft knock on my door. "Mom?" It was Jason. "Come in," I said. He opened the door and stepped inside. He looked uncomfortable. "Guilty. Are you okay?" he asked. I almost laughed. Was I okay? No. I wasn't okay. But what was I supposed to say? "I'm fine," I said. He sat down on the chair by the window. "I know this is hard," he said. "But it's not forever. You'll find a nice place. We'll help you. And you can visit whenever you want. You'll still see Tommy all the time. Visit. Like a guest." "Jason," I said quietly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you remember when your father died?" He nodded. His eyes softened. "Of course I do." "Do you remember what you told me at the funeral?" He hesitated. "I told you a lot of things. You told me I'd never be alone," I said. "You held my hand and you promised me I'd never be alone." His face fell. He looked down at his hands. "I remember," he whispered. "I believed you," I said. "I gave up my home. I gave up my life. I came here because I thought I was needed. I thought I was helping. I thought I was doing the right thing." "You were," he said quickly. "You did help. You do help. Then why do I feel like I'm being thrown away?" I asked. My voice cracked. And that's when the tears came. I couldn't stop them anymore. Jason stood up and came to me. He knelt down in front of me and took my hands. "Mom, you're not being thrown away," he said. "I love you. I'll always love you. But Rebecca is my wife. And I have to think about what's best for my family. There it was again. His family. Not our family. His. My eyes. I pulled my hands away. I understand, I said. I'll start looking for a place. Mom. It's okay, Jason, I said. Really? It's okay. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. He stood up. He kissed the top of my head, like he used to do when he was young. I'm sorry, he whispered. Then he left. I sat there alone in the dark. And I realized something that hurt more than anything else. I had spent my whole life loving people who didn't know how to love me back the same way. Daniel loved me, but he was gone. Jason loved me, but not enough to fight for me. Rebecca didn't love me at all. And Tommy. Tommy didn't even know me well enough to miss me when I was gone. I was alone. Just like I'd been afraid of. Just like Jason promised I'd never be. But here I was. Alone. I started looking for apartments the next day. I didn't tell Jason or Rebecca. I just went online, printed out some listings, and started calling. I visited 3 places that week. Small 1-bedroom apartments. They were clean. Quiet. Empty. I tried to imagine myself living in one of them. Waking up alone. Eating breakfast alone. Going to bed alone. I tried to picture it. But every time I did, I felt a weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. Still, I picked one. It was on the 2nd floor of an older building. It had a small balcony that looked out over a parking lot. It wasn't much. But it was affordable. And it was available immediately. I signed the lease on a Thursday. That night, I told Jason and Rebecca over dinner. I found a place, I said quietly. They both looked up at me. Jason's face was a mix of relief and guilt. Rebecca's face was carefully neutral. That's great, Mom, Jason said. Where is it? I told them. I told them about the apartment. About the balcony. About the lease. I kept my voice calm. I didn't want them to see how much it hurt. When do you move in? Rebecca asked. Weeks, I said. She nodded. We'll help you move. Right, Jason? Of course, he said quickly. Whatever you need, Mom. I thanked them. I finished my dinner. I went to my room, and I started packing. Over the next 2 weeks, I boxed up my life. Again. Clothes. Books. Pictures. The few things I'd brought with me when I first moved in. It didn't take long. I didn't have much. Jason and Rebecca were kind during that time. Too kind. Like they were overcompensating. Rebecca made my favorite meals. Jason spent more time talking to me. They both told me over and over that I could visit whenever I wanted, but it all felt hollow. Like they were trying to ease their own guilt. The day I moved out was a Sunday. Jason rented a truck. He and a friend of his helped me load my things. It took less than 2 hours. My whole life fit into the back of a pickup truck. Rebecca stayed home with Tommy. She said he had a cold. But I think she just didn't want to be there. I didn't blame her. I think she'd been waiting for this day for a long time. When everything was loaded, Jason drove me to my new apartment. We didn't talk much on the way. He tried to make small conversation. Asked me if I was excited. If I thought I'd like the neighborhood. I just nodded and said yes. We unloaded everything into my new place. The apartment looked even smaller with my furniture in it. Jason helped me set up my bed. He hung a few pictures for me. He asked 3 times if I was sure I had everything I needed. I'm fine, Jason, I said. Really? In the middle of my tiny living room and looked around. He looked sad, but not sad enough to ask me to come back. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. Okay. He hugged me. It was a long hug. Tight. Like he was trying to hold on to something he'd already let go of. I love you, Mom. I love you too, I whispered. And then he left. I stood in the doorway and watched him walk down the hallway. I watched him disappear into the stairwell. I heard the door close. I heard his truck start outside. Then I closed my door. I stood in the middle of my new apartment and looked around. It was quiet. So quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of a clock on the wall, the muffled sound of a TV from the apartment next door. I sat down on the couch. I didn't unpack. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself feel everything. I felt the loss, the rejection, the loneliness. I felt the weight of being unwanted. of being too much, of not being enough. I cried. Hard. The kind of crying that shakes your whole body. The kind that leaves you gasping for air. I cried for Daniel. For the life we'd built together. For the home we'd lost. I cried for Jason. For the little boy who used to need me. For the man who didn't anymore. I cried for myself. For the choices I'd made. For the things I'd given up. For the person I used to be. I cried until I had nothing left. And then, slowly, something shifted. I looked around the apartment again. This time, I didn't see it as small or empty. I saw it as mine. My space. My quiet. My choice. For 3 years, I had lived in someone else's home. I had followed someone else's rules. I had tried to fit into someone else's life. But this was mine. I got up. I unpacked one box. Then another. I hung my pictures on the walls. I put my books on the shelf. I made my bed with the quilt Daniel and I had bought on our anniversary 20 years ago. Of tea. I sat on my small balcony and watched the sun go down. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. It wasn't the life I'd wanted. But it was the life I had. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. Jason called the next day. Like he promised. He asked how I was settling in. I told him I was fine. And this time, I meant it. The first few weeks in my new apartment were strange. I had to learn how to be alone again. How to cook for one. How to fill the silence. How to wake up in the morning without a purpose pulling me out of bed. Some days were harder than others. There were mornings I woke up and forgot where I was. I'd reach for Daniel's side of the bed and feel nothing but empty sheets. I'd listen for Tommy's laughter and hear only the hum of the heater, but there were also mornings that surprised me, mornings where I made coffee exactly the way I liked it. Strong. 2 sugars. No one to tell me it was too sweet, mornings where I sat on my balcony in my pajamas and didn't have to hurry. Didn't have to help. Didn't have to be needed. Mornings where I was just Ruth, not someone's wife. Not someone's mother. Not someone's burden, just me. I started walking again. But this time, I didn't walk to escape. I walked to explore. I found a library 3 blocks away. I found a small cafe that made the best cinnamon rolls. I found a park with benches under oak trees where I could sit and read. I joined a book club at the library. It was small. Just 6 women, all around my age. We met every Thursday evening. We talked about books. We talked about life. We laughed. One of the women, Margaret, had also lost her husband. She understood the loneliness, the ache, the strange relief of not having to take care of anyone but yourself. To enjoy this, she told me one evening. It doesn't mean you didn't love them. It just means you're learning to love yourself too. I cried when she said that, because I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear it. Jason called every week, sometimes twice a week. He'd ask how I was doing. He'd tell me about Tommy, about work, about Rebecca. I listened. I asked questions. I told him I was proud of him. And I meant it. He invited me over for dinner once a month. I went. I played with Tommy. I chatted with Rebecca. I helped clean up after the meal. But when the evening ended, I went home. To my apartment. To my space. To my life. And I didn't feel sad about it anymore. One evening, about 6 months after I'd moved out, Jason came to visit me. Just him. No Rebecca. No Tommy. He sat on my couch and looked around. You've made this place really nice, Mom, he said. Thank you, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry. I looked at him. For what? For making you leave, he said. For not fighting harder to make it work. For choosing the way I did. I sat down next to him. I took his hand. Jason, I said gently. You didn't make me leave. You made a choice for your family. And that's what you're supposed to do. I'm not angry at you. You should be, he said. Maybe, I said. But I'm not. Because I've learned something these past few months. What's that? I've learned that sometimes the hardest thing someone can do for you is let you go, I said. You let me go. And it hurt. But it also gave me something I didn't know I needed. What? Myself, I said. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I miss you, Mom. I miss you too, I said. But we're okay. We're going to be okay. He hugged me. And this time, it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like understanding. When he left that night, I stood at my window and watched his car pull away. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. I'm still learning how to live this life. This quiet, simple, solo life. Some days are lonely. Some days I wish things had been different. But most days, I'm grateful. Grateful for the silence. Grateful for the space. Grateful for the chance to be enough, just as I am. I don't know what the rest of my life will look like. I don't know if I'll always live alone. I don't know if Jason and I will ever be as close as we once were. But I know this. I am not unwelcome anymore. Not in my own home. Not in my own heart. And that's enough. Thank you for listening to Ruth's story. What would you do in her place? Have you ever felt unwanted by family? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment. And tell me where you heard this story. If it touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories just like this one. Many more emotional journeys are waiting for you. Until next time, take care and remember, you're enough.